Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here at my next Airspeed Reads Naruto video. This one's going to be for volume 12 of the manga, which is called The Great Flight. And there's a pretty nice image of Naruto there as our kind of 3-in-1 volume cover page thing. We covered 9 chapters here, chapter 100 to 108, Prepare to Lose, The Other, The Caged Bird, The Failure, The Power to Change, The Great Flight, Sasuke Forfeits, The Boy with No Fighting Spirit, and A Plot Within a Plot. This is a pretty good volume, I think. The main things we cover here are 2 pretty big fights. Naruto Neji, of course, at the start. A lot of plot focuses on that. Most of the volume is about that. A little bit of kind of transitional stuff in the middle as the matches kind of get mixed up because Sasuke hasn't arrived yet. Kankuro forfeits his match and so on. And then we cut straight to basically what was meant to be the last match, which is Shikamaru versus Temari. And that is really a great showcase of Shikamaru as a character, as I'll get into. And that's basically where we end the volume. So, some really important stuff here. Naruto's big fight, Shikamaru's real breakout as a character, and some plot stuff in the middle. So yeah, because there's only a couple of things to really talk about in the volume. I'll start by actually talking about the flashback that happens during the Neji Naruto fight, because it really gives context to Neji as a character. And it'd be really awkward for me to kind of try and go through kind of page by page and be like, okay, the fight starts, they go back and forth here, then we get a bit of the flashback and then the fight and then stuff like that. So let's just cover the flashback first. Neji knows part of what happened here, and that misunderstanding is primarily why he is the way he is. And it's interesting because obviously what happens in the past is that when Hinata was 3, she was kidnapped by a cloud ninja just after the Leaf and the Cloud had signed a treaty with each other, a peace treaty. They broke it, they went to capture Hinata to steal the Byakugan, and her father, Hisashi, killed this cloud ninja. But obviously, in doing this, he ends up being the one who breaks the treaty, even though it was the cloud. Who kidnapped Hinata. The Cloud want revenge for this, so they want the body of Hisashi Hyuga, the leader of the Hyuga clan, and the elders basically decide, at least as far as Neji is aware, that the second that this idea came up, Neji considers that the leaders of the main branch of the family decided and made decision that they were going to sacrifice Neji's father, Hisashi, in place of Hinata's father. And he obviously harbors a lot of resentment towards the main branch because of that, because of the mark on his forehead and everything, just the fact that he can't be, I suppose, the best he can be because he happened to be the son of the brother who was born seconds after the other one. He is suddenly part of the branch family because of, in his mind, like a twist of fate, destiny. Just because of the fact that his father was born like a few seconds later, he has to live like this. And it's really interesting because you do begin to feel some sympathy for him. And Naruto, I think, really kind of still obviously is against Neji because of what he did to Hinata and the fact that Neji does have a kind of very set way of thinking, and he is kind of judging people and determining what they can be and really just kind of labeling them and stuff like that. Naruto doesn't like that, but I don't think he anymore is seeing Neji as the villain that he was during his fight with Hinata, that he better understands Neji and is now more trying to prove him wrong. And obviously what happens later on after the fight is that Hisashi comes up to Neji and basically says, look, the truth is I wanted to die that day. I wanted to give up my life to protect the village, to avert a war, but this is what actually happened. And what happened is that Hisashi was actually willing to do it. That was the thing. Like both Hisashi and Hisashi were actually willing to give themselves up for this. But the thing was, Hisashi didn't want his brother to basically just be like forced to do this by the main branch. He wanted to do it because I suppose he felt he was responsible. He's the leader. He should be the one to make this big decision. The elders were telling him to just let Neji's father do it, and that way we could hand over basically a look-alike to the person that they wanted, but we won't be giving the Cloud the Byakugan, which is the key thing that they don't want to give away. Because basically they roughly explain that the mark, the sealing mark on the foreheads of the side branch basically destroys the Byakugan upon death, and no one can take it, basically. But it's not the same with the main branch. So what we get happening here is that Hisashi, Neji's father, makes the decision. He kind of he knocks Hisashi down and makes the decision himself. He is going to hand himself over and be killed, because he's not doing this for the. He's not doing this because it's his duty as a side branch to protect him. He's doing this because he wants to, he wants to protect his brother, protect the Leaf, protect the Hyuga clan, protect the Byakugan. He's making this decision of his own free will to die, to protect the people that he cares about. Not because it's his destiny as a side branch to be sacrificed for the main family, but because he's choosing himself to do it. And it's a really interesting way of doing it, because when it comes down to it, it is kind of just splitting hairs in that this was going to happen anyway. The main branch the elders were basically going to decide anyway to do this. But because he chose to do it himself, he's free. The curse mark that means he's controlled by the main branch doesn't control him anymore. And so Neji, hearing this afterwards, kind of realizes that a lot of his hatred was misplaced, and that his father had figured out a way to, still be yourself and still have your own destiny while still only be part of the side branch. In that Hisashi respects Neji for being the most talented member of the Hyuga clan, despite being part of the branch family. Especially in this fight, when he uses a lot of the techniques that he specifically wasn't taught because they're only meant to be taught to the main branch. It is a kind of big moment, and you can see there's a lot more respect between Hisashi and Neji afterwards, and it's really well done, because there's this whole idea about the caged bird, and the Neji now being free after this, and Naruto proving this to him, and learning the truth about what happened, also proving it. And Neji is a very different character after this, who isn't obsessed with being defined by the way you were born, your birth and stuff like that, and that defining everything about you from the start. So it's really good development, just with the use of one clever flashback told from two perspectives. The perspective of someone who wants to vilify the main family versus what actually happened. It's really well done, and it kind of shows just how a misunderstanding can really change someone's perspective on things, because it's one of those things where you question, why didn't Hisashi tell Neji this before? But I think the idea is that he'd always just considered Neji, he's part of the side branch, he doesn't need to be told these things, because he's not hurting anyone because of this. But I suppose him seeing Neji during the fight with Hinata, him seeing Neji and the way he is during his fight with Naruto, kind of showed him that he's really become lost in this quest to outdo the main branch, and that he needs to know the truth here so he can actually develop as good as he needs to develop. So really cool context given to most of this fight, and because here's the thing, this fight is surprisingly wordy. There is not actually a ton of fighting that actually happens in Naruto versus Neji. It's a few little engagements, but primarily it's 3 or 4 split up between a lot of conversation, because Neji tells Naruto the backstory in the middle of their fight, so it is very kind of split up. I think the anime has a slight advantage doing this, because it's a fight with a lot of words and a lot of talking, so the voice acting really helps to make it a lot more interesting, whereas in the manga, when you just had a little fight and then suddenly you have to read through 4 or 5 pages of just word bubbles, it's okay, get back to the fight, but and you have to just read a lot, whereas in the anime, of course, they're just saying it. But there are some very nice moments, just in terms of Naruto starting off the fight, Shadow Clone Jutsu, impressing everyone, because this is his first time having a fight in front of a lot of people. He showed off in front of the rest of the competitors during the last round of the tuning exams, but in this round he's in front of everyone from the Leaf Village, basically, and a lot of people from the other villages too. So he impresses all the Jonin from his own village, who have gradually be gaining more respect for him, but just the idea that he can use the kind of forbidden jutsu, the sealed away jutsu, the shadow clone jutsu, and he can use it really well. That's impressive. And then obviously later on, revealing to everyone that he can control the chakra of the nine-tailed fox blows everyone away. Some people have no idea that it is related to the nine-tailed fox, and they're just impressed that he can break through the Hyuga's attack on the chakra network. Just overall, just super impressive. The one weird thing, though, in the middle of this fight that I still don't quite understand the exact reason for it is that Hinata's injuries coming back and her kind of going unconscious basically midway through the fight. I get that it basically takes her out of action just before they delve into the backstory where Neji talks about Hinata being kidnapped and you get really deep into Neji's character. But shouldn't that have been something that Hinata hears? Shouldn't the end of Naruto versus Neji be something that Hinata sees? She sees a person like her, a failure, winning against the prodigy. It just seems really weird to me that Naruto fulfills the kind of thing that's been set up this entire time, where the failure, the hard work beats prodigy, and Rock Lee is not there to see it really. At least we don't see him, I don't think here, and Hinata is not awake to see it either. It's interesting, especially Hinata, just that connection that she and Naruto had when he watched her fight with Neji, and now she's unconscious during this. To some extent, I get it because they would have had to do some weird, embarrassed reactions to her hearing about her being kidnapped when she was younger, and I suppose delving super heavily into Neji's character like that isn't the sort of thing she really needed to hear, but at the same time, all it really accomplishes is just okay, it highlights again how much damage Neji did to Hinata, but then there's this weird thing with Kabuto, who we know it's him under the mask, basically going undercover as an Anbu, a Black Ops member. He just starts to heal Hinata for no obvious reason. I suppose it's another way to prove that he's a leaf person. He's helping someone in the crowd who was injured with his healing, but it's just really weird what that ultimately builds to, and especially Hinata. I just feel like the pros would have outweighed the cons of her being awake during all of this. So in the comments, that's one of the things I really want you guys to potentially explain to me. I've watched the anime a bunch of times, and this is me reading the manga for the first time, but I just don't get why Hinata was written to be unconscious during the end of this very important fight, where I think her seeing this was very important. You do get one moment, I think, where you sort of see her unconscious and she kind of smiles just after Naruto said something that's kind of complimentary of her, but in general, we skip past a lot of that. Yeah. Next up, the fight basically just continues. We get to reveal that Neji has this new technique, rotation, which is a technique used by the main branch of the Hyuga family, but Neji has managed to figure it out himself, which impresses Hisashi. And then basically Naruto's hit by Liz. He's hit by Neji's 8 trigram 64 palms, so his chakra network is blocked. He then realizes that the only way to basically come back in this fight, Naruto, is to use the Nine Tails chakra. So he loads up his chakra, the chakra network fills up again, the energy erupts from him and everyone's impressed. Neji is shocked and sees this kind of devil basically coming out of Naruto with the vision of the Nine Tails, and they clash. They're much more equal now because Naruto's quicker, he's stronger, he can actually get up close against Neji and not take too much damage from the rotation, and it all comes down to one final clash. As I said, the actual fighting in this fight is not all that impressive. It is more of a character moment rather than this back and forth fight like Gaara and say Rock Lee. It's more of a character moments fight rather than it is a constant engagement, really cool action. Because fundamentally it comes down to one final clash. They blow up against each other. 10-10 gives us some explanation that Naruto took way more damage from that attack than Neji did, because the rotation attack actually kind of sends an opponent's attack back at them. So Naruto took double damage. Neji gets up first. He sees Naruto's body kind of smoking in a whole by the side. He goes over to it, kind of gloats a bit, and then Naruto erupts out of the ground. Left uppercut, Neji's knocked out completely, can't move. Naruto wins the fight. Really cool, like, final blow, just seeing Naruto fly up out of the ground. And then it leads to probably my favorite moment of the whole volume, I think, and that is Neji being just like, in the middle of all that, you managed to create a shadow doppelganger, your signature ninjutsu that was careless of me. And we all know the details on this, but Neji doesn't. Most of the audience doesn't really, like, to some extent. Even Sakura, I don't think, fully understands the meaning of this. But Naruto just explains that I failed the academy graduation exam 3 times. The reason I failed it was because the jutsu that I was the weakest at always came up every time. The standard clone jutsu. It was my worst jutsu. I could never get it right. I always failed it. And it's just a big moment because he says, so shut up about destiny and an inescapable fate. You shouldn't whine about such trivial stuff because unlike me, you're not a failure. And just him revealing there that, look, I was awful at clone jutsu. The reason I was held back so much was because I failed the graduation exam 3 times. I failed it because of clone jutsu. Yet you consider my signature technique to be shadow clone jutsu. This Jonin level technique that you can't even do kind of thing. So it's just this big moment where he proves to Neji. Neji proves it to Naruto because he considers that his signature technique. That you can change who you are. You can change your destiny. Hard work does get you somewhere. And it's a really strong moment, I think. And then that's followed up by just this great moment for Naruto as a character. Everyone starts clapping. Everyone starts cheering. Naruto is finally getting respect from everyone. Nothing to do with the fact that he has the Nine Tails inside him or anything like that. Because they really appreciated him in the fight, sticking in there, his guts, his determination, how clever he was in the end to win, and keeping his ideals, I suppose. The audience heard what was going on as much as everyone else. So, really cool moment. And just you have Genma, the proctor for this thing, going like, I can't believe he still has the energy to run around. Sheesh, that kid's got stamina like crazy. So, pretty cool stuff. And then Genma just says to Neji, Actually, I actually really like this line as well. Even a caged bird, when it smartens up, will try to open the cage door with its beak, never giving up on its dream to fly again. And that's obviously when he actually comes in to see Neji and explains the full details. And Neji is very different now. My goal, he says to his father, basically, thinking about him, my dream is simple, to become stronger. Right now, I want to become so strong I will never lose to anyone again. And then he notes that there are so many birds in the sky today flying free, and that, like, he is now one of them. He's free because of what he learned today. Pretty cool. After that, we just get into the whole thing. Sasuke's still not here. Little flashback to Gaara arriving up where Kakashi and Sasuke are training. Kind of still trying to imply that Gaara potentially killed Sasuke and Kakashi, but we don't know the details just yet. The Kazekage gets very passionate about this match and says that, like, for most of us, this is the only reason a lot of the nobles came to see this, because we wanted to see this match, the last Uchiha against the best candidate from the Sand Village. Please give him more time to come. So they mix up the schedule a bit. Next up is Kankuro versus Shino. Kankuro immediately says, I withdraw, because he can't show his signature technique just yet, because he's obviously part of the ultimate plan to take down the Leaf Village, so he can't actually show off his secrets of his puppets. So immediately Temari jumps down. She has to create more time for the actual plan to succeed, because she doesn't have like a secret technique. She's just generally strong. So Shikamaru versus Temari is how we kind of end the volume, and we see Ino like really kind of rooting for Shikamaru, knock her block off, hit her with a 16 punch combo, but he doesn't have that. Shoji shows up and is basically like, oh, it's so interesting to see Shikamaru fighting in the final. It's kind of weird. And Ino's like, no, he's actually super strong. I think he can win this. And Shoji's just like, nah, I think he's going to give up pretty quick. And just a little joke about Naruto pushed Shikamaru down, but Ino saw it as Shikamaru eager to jump down and that he's actually really passionate about winning this time. But yeah, the fight begins, and basically we just get this idea that Shikamaru is not putting in a lot of effort there. He's just standing there, hands in his pockets, and putting as least amount of effort in as possible. Temari's technique is revealed that she uses her fan along with wind style jutsu to do these really powerful gusts that kind of cut basically. Shikamaru really coolly dodges them, just sticks to kunai on the wall, stands on top of them, and the fight is just this amazing tactical battle as Shikamaru just sits down basically in the shadows of the wall and just sends a shadow at her. She marks the distance, and we get this idea that this is both of these characters are kind of good tactically. Temari is basically established. She's a really good tactician, and then Asuma and Kurenai just in talking gradually reveal this whole idea of like, okay, Kurenai, look, you don't know this yet, but Shikamaru is actually a genius. We used to play Choji a lot. I've never managed to beat him. I once gave him an IQ test, and he got 200. When he does this this weird hand sign like this, he's just thinking up a strategy. That kid is an honest to god genius. So it's really interesting that they just established that he's so intelligent, but he puts so little effort in. But we get this really cool thing as he waits. The shadow of the wall gets longer because the sun comes down. He constantly is making Temari doubt her distance from him because she knows the second she gets caught, she loses. Once the nature of his technique means he wins every fight the second he kind of grabs hold of her. He then, takes off his jacket and sends that along with his kind of headband and like a kunai flying at her to create an extra shadow, which further extends it. And he's just getting her into position. Then she kind of gradually comes up next to the hole where Naruto came out of, and there's a hole obviously where Neji is, and he just sends his shadow down into the hole, up into the hole behind her, and grabs her. And really cool to just that's why the last chapter of this volume is called A Plot Within a Plot. She loses the fight at the end, but just when you think he's about to basically say like, okay, finishing blow, he puts his hand up and says, "That's it, I'm done. I give up." And everyone's like, "What? What are you doing?" Really. And some people are kind of impressed and like weirded out, but some of them are just like, why did you just give up, Shikamaru? You just won the fight. And we're waiting until obviously the next volume to get the explanation for that, but just really cool tactical masterclass from Shikamaru here, putting in very little effort apart from the chakra needed to do his jutsu, but just completely making Temari kind of outthink herself, basically. That, okay, I'm doing this, I'm keeping far away. I even managed to dodge his like flying shadow technique, but then it just comes down to the fact that his overall plan was to guide her next to the hole that Naruto came out of in the last fight. That he was planning his tactics for this fight the second basically Naruto's match came to an end, and the second he knew he was going to be in action. And just very clever the way that the plots come together, and just instantly makes him a sort of character where his fights are going to be very different than everyone else's because he's going to think things through, whereas Naruto's fights are always going to be these kind of like punch fests where like everyone's going to go down at some point, everyone's going to get back up, and it's going to be like dramatic and intense. But Shikamaru's fights are always going to be like tactical battles, and that's really interesting. But yeah, that's basically the volume. It's good. It's two different type of fights than we've got before. One, a very story-driven fight. There's still not a lot of actual fighting in Naruto versus Neji, but the character stuff for Neji as a character is brilliant. Along with stuff like Hinata, Naruto mentioning Hinata, and how just moments like that, him calling out Neji for like trying to actually hurt Hinata in the last fight to really prove his point, that Naruto's point is proven by the fact that you are trying to defy your own destiny because you are going so far out of your way to prove yourself against the main branch of the family. Just really cool dynamics going on there. Shikamaru's fight was really good. Still confused about why they had Hinata knocked out for most of this, when I think her reactions would have been the most interesting to get during this whole sequence. But yeah, my favorite character from this volume, I'm gonna have to give it to Neji. I just think what they managed to do here in turning this character you kind of dislike because what he did to such a nice character like Hinata, making you understand him and have this honestly emotional arc during this fight, even though it's our main character who we really care about fighting against him, you still care about Neji here, and going forward you have a little bit more hope for him, and that he's a Leaf Village ninja. Like we're gonna follow him a little bit, so we now care about Neji, and there's a bit better relationship between him and other characters now. So I just really like what they did here. His misunderstanding of what happened in the past, and Naruto really kind of proving something to him in the fight here, and Neji kind of also wanting to never lose again. Then obviously the even then, like the tactical battle later on with Shikamaru was still good, but Neji I think is the best character from the volume. My favorite art panel is this top panel here on this page, just there. I really like that moment. It's just that like Naruto's just been through this crazy fight. He's had to get emotional, really thinking about things, proving his point, his ninja way. Crazy battle, took a lot of damage. The second people start clapping for him, he's just completely into it. That he has a slight reaction initially where he's just like, wait, are they jeering me again? Am I getting kind of like abused again like I was in the past? But no, the second that it just like snaps like that, and he's just like, no, they're cheering for me. Awesome. Now they do it a little bit later on, much later on in the series, where a lot more people begin to praise Naruto and get behind him, and he does begin to like doubt that, like, why weren't they like this before? Why do I have to do so much to prove myself to them? But here it's just like he's so happy to have anyone doing that for him, that he's not in any way like resentful that like, oh, it's only now that you're starting to cheer for me because I did something cool. You didn't care for me before when I was actually going through a lot of stuff or anything like that. He's just accepting it here, and I really like that. Favorite line is probably from Hisashi Hyuga, Neji's father. And he says that I was not. So please convey to Neji that I was not murdered to protect the main branch, but that I freely chose to die in order to protect Neji, my siblings, the clan, and the entire village. Hisashi says, so by choosing your own death, you gain freedom. Brother, I always wanted to defy the Hyuga destiny, even if only once. I just wanted to choose my own destiny, that's all. That's what this whole volume has kind of been about for Neji as a character, and that line from his father really sums it up, and him learning about that later on, that that's something his father said, really changes Neji going forward, and I really like that. So yeah, that's been volume 12. That's been the end of the fourth 3-in-1 volume. And yeah, we move on to the next book next time out. So yeah, that's been the review. In the comments, the main thing I want to ask you guys about, as I said a couple of times, was what are your thoughts on Kishimoto's decision in this volume to have Hinata be unconscious during what I consider to be a scene where it'd be very important to see what her reactions are to it, to see Naruto beat Neji and her reaction to that. I just thought it was very interesting that he specifically chose to have her be unconscious during that, for I think not much gain having her be unconscious, just like the continuity of having her still be injured. But yeah, other than that, that's been the volume review. Thanks for watching, and bye.